How awesome is it that I can drink and talk to Judd Apatow at 5 in the afternoon?
This is what you've always wanted.
And people say I've been mean to Jesus, but I tell you this, the man does not take offense, apparently.
Yes.
So, do you have a drink?
I do have a drink right here.
Oh, you do? Good.
I'm joining you.
You know, my parents used to watch the clock like kids in school waiting for the bell to ring.
Yeah.
Because, like, before 5, you're a fucking drunk. And after 5, it's cocktails.
They hit it hard.
People in that's the Mad Men era. They fucking drank. I don't know if that's your parents.
My dad will do that.
But not before 5.
How far would it go?
Well, my father was Irish, shall we say. He was tense in his job. He was a newsman.
Yeah.
So, you know, in the days when you had to read the news, like, with a stopwatch because it was live on the hour on the radio station. It was a tense job.
Yeah.
The best conversation I ever had with him was when I was in college and I was stoned and he was drunk.
Yeah.
You know, but he was never somebody who didn't function or was drunk on the job.
Yeah.
He just like, you get home and boy, you need to unwind, you know.
And did he mind you unwinding?
He was so fucking naive about it.
Yeah.
One time, my friend and this is the first year I'm smoking pot.
What year is this, Bill?
This is 1975.
And you're 12.
19. And
19 is the first time you smoked
yes,
pot? I smoked pot in 6th grade, Bill. Look at me. I'm the straight one between us.
You smoked pot in 6th grade?
My best friend, Ronnie Garner, his brother followed the dead, and he grew pot in his room. And so one day we said, let's smoke that pot, because we were young animals, and no one was paying attention to us. We were like latchkey kids. And so we were so scared, we went to where they were building condominiums, like half-built condominiums, like a horror movie. And like we took like one puff each, and then a security guard was like, "Hey, you!" And we ran for like 7 miles. I don't think the guy even turned and took a step, and then that was it for a couple of years.
Young Animals, by the way, is a good title for you.
Yes.
For something, right?
Yeah.
Young Animals?
I haven't written that movie yet. The 6th, 7th grade era.
I would go right around the title. I would just go right for the title, Judd. But, so listen to this story. I'm 19. My first year, you know, I literally would, like my friend would, when I was home, you know, on vacation.
Yeah.
From my wonderful time at Cornell. Okay, so I'd be with my friend. He was the one who introduced me to the pot, high school friend. He would come over and we would smoke like in the car, in the driveway, and then sit in the driveway for an hour because we were just laughing at the glove compartment. I mean, that first year, the drug worked so well, at least it did for me, especially as a laugh drug, that you're just hysterical, almost like what mushrooms would be later in life. You know, mushrooms is always a laughing drug. But one time, it was the dead of winter, I was home winter vacation, and we're driving, smoking in the car, doing bongs. We had a little bong. We do it at traffic lights.
Yeah, we didn't know.
Well, I could have been in jail now. So we rolled down, I say roll down all the windows when you had to roll them down in the Pontiac, Dad's Pontiac, because we got to air out the car.
No seatbelts.
No seatbelts.
No airbags.
No, nothing, just our wits. And here's our wits, besides smoking at red lights. So I say, roll down all the windows to air out the car before we get home. It's like 10 degrees out. We pull in, we forgot about the windows. So my father's shoveling snow. He comes over and he says, it's 10 degrees out. Why are the windows all rolled down? And any other father who wasn't like so trusting in his son would have known why.
Yeah.
And I just said, he farted.
You know what the lesson I saw was?
It.
Your dad was a terrible journalist. He didn't sniff that out at all.
You're right. When it came to his kids, he was very naive that way.
Yeah.
You know, he was just, you know, good heart and trusting and stuff. But, you know, speaking of family, I have to say, your kid so killed it on Euphoria this year.
I know,
you must be such a proud papa.
Oh, so proud. And
it seems like just yesterday she was saying, "Fuck you, Mom," and this is 40.
Exactly. That was preparation for Euphoria. You could see the stages.
No, but she's a nice one.
Yes.
I mean, and she really, they made her, gave her big part. She was fantastic. Boy.
What I liked about the show is it was like 2 years. The first 2 years was all leading to this idea of him showing, why they're all messed up and traumatized and the grief they have, and it was really beautiful. I just as someone who likes good television and cinema, to even get to have a little peek of what they're doing is
By the way, that's some high school play that high school can put on, huh?
Exactly. Well, it's a surreal experience.
No, I mean, of course you can't. It's like Apocalypse Now.
Yeah.
If you took that movie, as people remember at the time, compared it to Platoon, it was like, no, Platoon is not a comedy.
Yeah.
This is a black comedy. If you don't see it that way, it's not. And it's kind of the same thing with that. No high school play could ever look like that. You just go with it because it's so entertaining and it makes the art good. And I mean, it was. He's quite a talent, that Levinson, right?
And it's fun to watch Maude, preparing, because as a parent, she's telling you what work was like that day, and so she's like, "Oh, I hope I did a good job. I had to cry a lot today." And that's all you really know of what the day was. And then you see it, and it's the most beautiful, intense scene. And it's not at all like her description of it when she's coming home.
So many kids of, stars or directors.
Newsmen.
No, newsman doesn't really get... Well, it does a little.
Sure, look at what you did.
Right. And he was funny.
Yeah.
I saw the first part of your Carlin.
Yes.
It's so fantastic.
The George Carlin documentary, which will be out in May.
On HBO.
Yes.
Okay, it's amazing. I mean, you don't even have to love Carlin to begin with, but if you do, of course, it's even more amazing. But it's just, I think everybody knows. I mean, you show there, and I've seen it also a lot. He's still quoted tons on social media.
Every week he trends, and he's been dead for like 15 years.
That's so rare, especially among the younger generations who were not like us, who don't, we cared about older people, and even if they weren't around anymore, if they were interesting. Whereas I feel like the younger generations, it's like, if you're not around while I'm around, you don't exist. Yeah. So for Carlin to be still trending,
it's amazing. Because he has the perfect bit for everything that's happening all the time. And it doesn't matter what comes up. He has something about it.
Over the span of the career, yes.
Yeah, over 30 years he hit big government, big pharma, wokeness. I mean, there's a bit for every subject.
But I noticed you showed that his father, even though he was such a rotten guy and he was gone by the time George was 8, right?
By 1, I think.
No, I think he was around because George complained about him.
I think he saw him a teeny bit. Yeah.
But he was a monster to the mother.
Yes.
But he says he was very funny.
He was funny.
And this is such a common chord, right? With comics, the father is like a living room comedian. The father's funny, but not professional funny. And the kid, so many comics have that story in them.
Sure. My dad had all the Cosby records and the Lenny Bruce records. And,
was he funny?
And he was funny.
He made his friends laugh?
But on some level, he just put in me that comedy was an incredibly great thing. He loved it so much. That's what we had out. You have to listen to this. This
and
is
your parents were together?
For a little while.
Oh, not for all time?
Until end of junior high.
Oh.
Which for my high school is pretty good. One by one, every kid's parents got divorced, and you would move from your house into the Hidden Ridge condominiums. Everyone would switch over.
See, that shows we are not exactly the same generation.
Yeah.
Because my experience is not that at all.
No one got divorced.
Suicide was rather high.
Yeah.
In the town.
Just to get out of it.
Dad would be in the swimming pool.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Before he would leave.
Because he couldn't leave. Right. Yeah. I mean, that's, honestly, that was not that uncommon.
That's the New Jersey way.
Remember in Mad Men?
Yeah.
There was the character, the neighbor lady. There's a lady who's like a single mom. She's got that kid, Glenn, who has a crush on John Hamm's wife and kind of a creepy kid.
Yeah. On Mad Men,
On Mad Men, yeah. Well, she was like a pariah in the neighborhood. This is the 60s.
Yeah. Because you were in high school, in early 70s?
Yes. Freshman year was 70. I graduated in 74.
Yeah.
What
I graduated in 85.
Yeah, so we're like a decade, and that decade is the difference between a boomer and a Gen Xer.
Yeah, but very different times.
Very different.
Because you experienced the Beatles. A little bit.
I was old enough to know what I was experiencing.
Let me rephrase it. You experienced the Plastic Ono Band.
The Plastic Ono Band. Boy, they were pretty terrible.
There's a couple of killers there.
What?
Isn't it Mother? Isn't Mother Plastic Ono Band?
Oh, okay. You know what? I'm thinking, yes, if you want to be technical, his first two solo albums were the Plastic Ono Band, but they're John Lennon albums.
Yeah.
I think of the Plastic Ono Band as the gang that went up to Toronto with no rehearsal, Eric Clapton and Klaus Moorman and Yoko, and played like Cold Turkey, which is a horrible song.
Yeah. He never did the big tour, John Lennon.
No.
He hosted the Mike Douglas show because there's a clip in the George Carlin documentary where he's talking about changing from like a corny comedian to an edgy comedian.
Yes.
And then you reveal the other guests on the Mike Douglas show are John Lennon and Yoko Ono.
You know what got me more than anything? Well, two things. One, when he says, when he's first like really hitting it big, and he says, the thrill of getting caught in your own traffic. I've had that experience where you're coming to the theater or trying to leave the theater where you're playing, and there's a huge traffic jam because they came to see you. There's a crowd.
I have not had that, but I'm
well,
excited to hear you
could.
have. I could?
You could.
I'd have to, I'd have to create fewer lines of traffic to get in to create that.
Well, I mean, what? You know what? There's very few directors, and there's one coming a little later. I hope you stay a little and say hi, who are famous. It's very hard to become famous just from being a director. You know, I'm talking to the public.
Yes.
Like the man in the street knows your name. Like he knows Spielberg's, like he knows Quentin's name. Like, but it's not a lot. I mean, you say to the man in the street, you know, I don't know, name some directors. Scorsese, they know that name. Yeah. But it's rare, and they know his face, and, you know, he's like a celebrity. That's a rare thing.
Yeah.
So get out there and sell some tickets.
Yeah, well, that's his. I mean, I also do, you know, I do some stand-up, and I actually only direct to get better spots at the Improv.
Club Random is supported by SignalWire. Ever been on a typical video conferencing call with a bunch of people? It's impossible to understand anybody, especially if they're all talking at once. You don't believe me? Remember what it was like the last time a bunch of you tried to do an intervention for a family member on a video call? Nobody was in sync. Uncle Al's still a mess. That's because the latency sucks. SignalWire has virtually zero audio and video latency, so you can see and hear others in real time. The guys behind SignalWire are the same developers that pioneered the tech that enabled cloud phone systems, Zoom, and the Ring doorbell years ago. But since then, the technology has gotten so much better that they developed their own next-generation platform. SignalWire's advanced communications platform allows product builders and developers to create more natural, real-time, interactive experiences. With SignalWire, everything from simple one-to-one video calls to interactive broadcasts with thousands of participants can be easily integrated into any app, product, or website. And the video and audio quality is far superior and uses less bandwidth, so users' computers don't freeze up. It's been the top choice of TV and film studios for remote looping and audio recording. Imagine turbocharging your company's website or app or other products by integrating SignalWire into the mix. Visit signalwire.com/video to sign up for a free account and mention Bill Maher or Club Random to receive an additional 5,000 video minutes for testing your app or integration. Go to signalwire.com/video. Integrate real-time video and audio into your app, product, or website and be light years ahead with SignalWire. Go to signalwire.com/video today. Comics, as you well know, are bitter fucks, and one of the things we're bitter about is how shitty we were treated when we began. Yeah. I mean, there were times when I was promised money and got stiffed. I can think of two. Not that they burned in my mind 40 years later, but one was the Comedy Works in Philadelphia. He said he would send me an excuse me check for $100. Even that didn't come. Okay, it doesn't matter. I've forgotten all about it. And there was another one. I played in a disco. Oh my God! I was supposed to get $30 to be in a disco, which let's just say that wasn't a great gig to begin with. Never got that. And then of course they would just cheat you out of money when we had to have a strike. This is like '79.
The Comedy Store strike.
Comedy Store strike, and also we had a union thing in L.A. My book. I wrote one novel about my beginnings. It's called True Story. Ben almost made it into a movie way back in the day, but then other things happened. But, the political spine of that is the nascent union movement. There was a group of comedians who felt this is a showcase club. Yeah. We stink, and we're allowed to stink, and you don't pay us, and in response, we don't feel any obligation to be any good because we're working it out.
But the place is packed
and
making a fortune.
That's the other argument.
Yeah. Yes.
And which side were you on?
Well, that was a couple of years before my time, but I know that it was ugly.
My book, the plot is about me and my best friend, this comedian, you wouldn't know him. And that kind of split us apart. I thought he was a guy who was never going to make it as a comedian. He was not. He was a funny, witty Irishman, but he was not overly burdened with talent for the stage.
Yeah.
A little corny, a little not ahead of his time, behind it.
Yeah.
And I thought he used the excuse of let's all be, in solidarity and quit if we don't get paid. It's like, well, you're not going to make it anyway. You don't care if you get paid. Whereas I'm going to fucking beat out you other motherfuckers. Okay, so I am willing to eat shit now for what this club is giving me. And I kind of stand by that. Not that we shouldn't have gotten something. We got cab fare, but, I was terrible. I shouldn't have been paid, and I feel
and people crossed that picket line. There were people who crossed the picket line.
There was no picket line in New York. Yeah. I would not have crossed the picket line.
That was in New York. In L.A., there were people who Mitzi got to keep working.
I would never have crossed the picket line because my father was a big union guy. And his father, I had my genealogy done a few years ago on that show on PBS, the Skip Gates show. It's fantastic.
I refused to do it because they wanted my DNA, and I'm not giving it out to anybody.
Is that serious?
Maybe they're going to give it to my health insurance people. Maybe they're going to clone me after I'm dead. I'm not giving Gates my personal genetic information.
Did I?
Yes, he has it. He could build you in a lab at this point. He can make a Bill Maher ear.
That's no skin off my nose. Oh, maybe it is. No, why is that? Why would that bother
I don't
me?
like people that, I don't know, you know what? It's so funny, like the things that creep you out. Right. And there's no logical reason for it other than it made me think, that feels like the most personal thing I can do to give to strangers. And I don't know where all that data's going. So I've never done 23andMe.
Now you're getting me paranoid about it, and you could probably talk me into that point of view. Anyway, I don't remember the part about giving up my DNA. I thought they just had researchers.
Yeah.
Because they went to Ireland. Yeah. I mean, they found my Irish relatives going back to, I think, 1818, the church where they're born, that kind of stuff. There were records of that. It's fascinating. My grandfather, who I never met, but he was a badass. He was on the front page of the newspapers in 1919, 1920. He was head of the Boatsmen's Union. He met with the president, Woodrow Wilson, in the White House to settle this shit. He had the whole New York harbor locked up looking for better wages. I mean, back then, wages were really shit. That's my heritage. My father came from the same Irish, when the Irish ran New York, the cops and the Irishmen and all that stuff. And he would have been heartbroken if I ever crossed any picket line, and I never would. I mean, I'm pro-union, but unions got corrupt too. Mm-hmm. Let's not lie.
So you're from a long tradition of not taking any shit.
Well, certainly my grandfather was a badass.
Yeah.
a porn. I mean, that was mostly what Skip Gates concentrated on, and then he brought out a small mouse with my dick on it. Was that
in 10 years, Hulu's going to suddenly have a show with a guy very similar to you.
Have you ever seen that with the ear on the mouse?
Yes. Well, this is the future. They're going to be able to improve little sections of our body.
I mean, you're not getting any younger. Wouldn't you rather?
I'm going to miss it. I'm going to miss it. I can tell.
Miss what?
Well, like if I was 20, I'd be like, all these things are happening are going to reach me. And they're going to regenerate me, but I'm going to drop dead the day before that kicks in.
I always say that too. I say, I don't mind dying. I just don't want to be the last guy to do it.
Exactly.
We got the cure. Oh! But if they had spare parts, I mean, we already are part of the way there. Do you know who Ray Kurzweil is?
Yes.
You do? Of course you do. You know everything. Well, he predicted a lot of amazing things that came true, like almost to the year of the fall of the Soviet Union among them.
Yeah. And half man, half robots.
Well, that's his thing. It's called the singularity.
I know about it. I have nightmares about it.
Well, why? It's he says 2028 is when man and machine become fully integrated. No, we're already part the way there because I notice when you fill out certain things, it's like, do you have any metal in your body? You know, it's like, they're like, and soon that's going to be like, do you not have any? Are you a weirdo who has no metal in your body?
Well, now they can put things like on your head and have you like type with your thoughts. They're just beginning to figure out.
Type with your thoughts?
Yeah, like move a cursor with your mind. So we're getting closer. But at some point, the robots just say, it would be easier without the flesh people. They just
well, that's an interesting debate that people like Musk, Elon Musk, and maybe it's Bezos have. I'm not sure who, but Elon Musk, and I believe, and I'm on the page with him and you, which is that it's true, because everything that happens in movies
eventually happens.
Everything, yes.
Do you know I was at an Oscar party with Elon Musk, and I asked him. This is really funny. It was like maybe 10, 12 years ago. It was before Tesla. And he's there. Someone introduces me to him. I like heard his name, but I don't know who he is. It's before people really knew who he was.
Really?
And I said,
but you did.
I just kind of knew the name that maybe from like did he do PayPal or
he had something.
And so I just said, so what are you up to? And he said, I'm trying to come up with a spaceship that can fly to Mars and back. And I said to him, and we're both kind of maybe a little drunk, I said, there's no way you're going to figure that out before you die.
That's hysterical.
I was trying to get him not to innovate. I was such a Jew in that moment. I was just like, you'll never figure it out.
Yeah, do something practical. That's hysterical. Wow. But he is of the mind that, yes, what you say, that eventually the robots figure out they don't need us. I mean, it's disturbing, I feel, in itself, this typing with your mind, because that seems like, if you can do that, can't you read someone's mind? I mean, okay.
Or those Google glasses that no one wanted a few years ago, because like you could be wearing those glasses now, but videotaping our conversation without anyone knowing, those are about to come back, I think. You know, the idea that you're going to have your computer screens on there like RoboCop.
Yeah, that doesn't bother me as much. I wouldn't use them, but it's still living in the realm we're living in. It's sneaky, but we also always have done sneaky things. But getting inside my mind.
Yeah. What's in there, Bill? What would they see? We don't know already.
I hide way less than most people.
That's true.
It's me, and then a little bit of a realer me, and then a little realer me, and then public parking. And that's
well. What I would say about
random is right in the middle.
What I would say about you, Bill, is that I feel like the thing I really respect is that you mean everything that you say. I never feel like you write a joke to get to the joke.
Never.
That these are your beliefs, whether you agree or not.
Correct.
And I think a lot of comedians, they fudge their opinion to get to jokes, and like people want to be taken seriously for their opinions, but they also want to say, I'm just goofing, I don't mean any of it. And you have to pick a lane, I think.
And, well, when you start out, first of all, you're just trying to get the oxygen of laughter. So you'll say anything, whether you believe it or not. You know.
Or if it's me, you'll put on a wig.
Right.
The two are
You're just trying to survive. But yes, as you get better and more sophisticated at it, and that became much more my brand.
Yeah.
I feel like that's the bond with my audience. You don't have to agree with me. And many times people don't, or they don't fully. I always appreciate when someone says, I always agree with you. I'm like, there's a true fan.
Yeah.
But no, I love just as much people who say, I don't always agree with you, but they appreciate that, they respect that, and that's the thing I won't break, because then you got to stick with your brand, right? But interestingly, in the Carlin thing, he says at one point when he's making the transition from sellout, that person who needs the oxygen of laughter and money in his case, he's on the Kraft musical. See him with John Davidson.
Yeah. Wearing a sweater.
And the other comic is Richard Pryor.
We're in the same sweater.
They're the two, fucking, that's sad. It's not sad. It's like everybody's career in show business. You gotta fucking eat shit.
Yeah.
Even Pryor and Carlin ate shit on the Kraft musical.
Yeah.
It's almost uplifting.
Yeah, and they're singing. They're literally in variety show singing numbers.
But he says, when he switches up, he says, I'm playing to 40-year-olds. In nightclubs, and they're not digging it. I realized I had to go for the college crowd.
Yeah.
If a comic was super honest like him today, the last place they would go is the colleges. Colleges is where even Jerry Seinfeld won't play colleges, right? You know all about that.
I've heard that he said
yes,
it's not his favorite place to play.
I remember doing a whole thing about it was Jerry Seinfeld said it, Chris Rock said it, and Larry the Cable Guy.
So you play colleges?
A black, a Jew, and a redneck walk into a college, and none of them want to tell any jokes to these little pricks, to whom nothing is funny.
Yeah.
And do I play college? I would be the last one to be. They would protest before I got to the college.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even be able to walk on the stage, let alone survive. They would not agree with one premise. Probably that I had to say, unless it was Trump is an asshole. Yes, we can all agree Trump is an asshole. There's an easy one.
Yeah, depending, I guess, where the college is.
True. I'm sure there are colleges, in Texas and fucking places like that.
Because I used to book the colleges when I first met you. I booked you at a college.
Thank you for getting me back to my point of 20 minutes ago, which is why comedians are bitter, because we don't get paid well. But I remember to this day, as well as the ones who didn't pay me, that you paid me $500 at a time when that was not that was a good payday.
Yeah.
A good payday.
In town, in L.A.
In L.A. You picked me up.
I picked you up.
Do you remember the car?
That I was driving?
Yeah.
I'm sure I was driving a Jeep, I think.
Is this 89?
Yeah, it could have been a Volkswagen also. I'm not sure. No, this was probably 87, 88.
87. So you were just 2 years out of high school.
But I was booking shows to get spots. So I booked UC Santa Barbara, I booked USC when I was going there, and then occasionally people would ask me to book things, and then I would book people I admired and then force you to drive in a car with me and talk to me.
Well, I remember thinking, I must say, I have a pretty good eye for spotting a talent. It takes a big talent to spot a big talent, I always say. No, I don't really say that, but it made me feel good. But I thought from the very beginning, I said, this kid, definitely. This kid is going somewhere, I'm not sure where, but he is just too far along for his age. Your level of knowledge, I remember, about comedy was, I
was crazed.
So whatever happened to you?
Well, this book...
Perfect segue.
Well,
sicker in the head. Most people are listening to this, not hearing it, and watching it, so let me see it. Let me hold it up to my ear.
There you go. But when I was a kid in high school, I would interview comedians because I wanted to know about comedy, and then I put out these books for charity for Dave Eggers' 826 charity.
Is this more? This is like a part 2, right?
This is part 2.
Oh, I see.
Right. Letterman's in there, Sacha Baron Cohen.
Oh.
Nathan Fielder, Whoopi Goldberg.
Who's that?
Nathan For You. Have you not seen Nathan For You?
No.
Oh, you'd love it.
Okay.
Put in your queue.
Of course I'm going to read that.
But I was always obsessed with talking to comedians. And it was fun for this to talk to people because it was during the pandemic and everyone was home. So I got Letterman on the phone to talk for a couple of hours about what it was like.
Well, you got
doing the
Letterman to
show.
talk on the phone because you are who you are now. It couldn't have been that easy in 1987.
No.
And yet you still did it.
I still
you
did it.
still got to, you talked to all these people.
Yeah. Well, no one wanted to talk to anyone back then. I mean, the thing is, if you called Jerry Seinfeld in 1983 to do a long interview, he had never done one ever.
Right.
I mean, no one did like hour interviews with comics back then. They weren't really on the radio. They weren't in the newspaper. There was no podcast. There was no internet. So
Yeah, it's people were. I mean, that story that Paul Reiser tells.
Yeah.
About he comes to his house, George Carlin.
George Carlin came to his house to do an interview with his sister for her college radio
I mean,
station.
and he was well known by then. I mean, he wasn't a newcomer. It was just people. You know, people didn't used to be so paranoid. You know, that like in Lincoln's time, well, of course, Lincoln had a bad experience with this, but like, you know, you could just roll up on the president. You could knock on the White House door.
Yeah. Elvis did it.
What?
Elvis did it?
No.
That wasn't an appointment. He showed up.
I know, but he was stopped before he went in. He didn't just walk up. There was no gate back then. It was just the White House. It was just a house in the neighborhood. You know,
If you had the right cape, you were in there.
That's
And a badge. Didn't they give him a badge?
There's a picture that hanging in the bathroom in there of Elvis in that day. Well, I mean, it just shows the power of celebrity.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you can celebrity your way into or out of so much. It's not right. I'm not saying it's right. It's horrible. And yet, come on. I mean, I'm sure you've done it.
My level of celebrity is so perfectly low.
Oh, it's not.
I mean, it's fantastic. I remember going to see...
You've never gotten a table at a restaurant because...
You know what? Here's the thing. At my level, it's like 1 in 6 that it's going to happen. And it's worth it, and I'll take the shot every time.
Then you need to get a better assistant.
Yeah, the kids...
Whoever is calling these restaurants for you really is not doing the job.
I know they call up and they go, he made Knocked Up in 2007. I don't know if you saw it.
Okay, do I have to read your credit? Are you having a moment of confidence crisis that I have to read your credits for you?
But I remember going to see the Clippers with Shanling, right? So we're walking in the Clippers game, and Shanling always said he had the perfect level of celebrity because in a whole night at the Clippers game, 3 people walked up to him, you know, in a stadium, and each one could not have been happier to talk to him. No one else said a word to him.
Right.
And he said, Judd, this is what you want it to be.
Right
there.
I would say it's similar for me.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, sometimes it's so funny. People in civilian life have very often, especially if they don't live in L.A., they don't have any clue. They think every celebrity knows each other. They think if you're famous, every one of us is Michael Jackson in 1985. That, you know, we're just, that if I had children, I'd have to put a blanket over them because everyone would be taking pictures of them. And
I saw that, by the way, at the mall in Vegas.
So what?
Michael Jackson run through the mall at Caesar's Palace with one of his kids covered in some sort of headgear.
It was like a beekeeper thing.
Yeah.
It was hysterical. I remember there
was a head on the masks.
There was an episode of Eastbound and Down. I loved that show, Danny McBride. And he gets like the slightest job in show business, like an announcer on a local radio, sports announcer on the local TV station. And the next day he's got his kids wearing those Michael Jackson things. It was like the ultimate fame went to his head too fast. Club Random is supported by ZipRecruiter. According to the latest research, 90% of employers plan to make enhancing the employee experience a top priority in 2022. After all, a happy workplace is a key to attracting and keeping great employees, especially if they're working out of their kitchen. There are so many ways employers can make employees happier, make them feel more valued, and ask them questions. Never about their tits, of course. Focus on company culture. Offer more learning opportunities. Allow for more flexibility in schedule and attire, and show empathy and value. Again, nothing about the body. And if you need to add more employees to your team, there's ZipRecruiter. Their matching technology helps you find the right people for your roles fast. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/random. ZipRecruiter uses its powerful technology to find and match the right candidates with your job. Then, it proactively presents these candidates to you. It's like work Tinder. You can easily review these recommended candidates and invite your top choices to apply for your job. No wonder ZipRecruiter is the #1 rated hiring site in the US. ZipRecruiter's technology is so effective that 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. Leaves the boss more time to golf. Find the right employees for your workplace with ZipRecruiter. Try it for free at this exclusive web address, ZipRecruiter.com/random. That's ZipRecruiter.com/random. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. Hey, did you know HBO Max has podcasts? I'm on my podcast, doing an ad for a podcast about shows on my network, HBO. Wow, my head hurts. Now go even deeper inside your favorite shows with audio companions to some of the most groundbreaking and award-winning shows from HBO and HBO Max. Check out the latest podcast offerings from HBO Max wherever you get your podcasts. Tune into the official companion podcast for the HBO original series Winning Time, The Rise of the Lakers Dynasty. Take a look behind the scenes with executive producer Rodney Barnes as he is joined by a collection of guests each week ranging from Adam McKay to Snoop Dogg. Get an inside glimpse of how this series sheds light on one of the most electrifying sports dynasties in history. Stream now on HBO Max and listen to the official Winning Time podcast, wherever you get your podcasts.
But you had George Carlin on your show a bunch of times, some amazing appearances where he really went at some of the other guests, because I saw him when we were making the doc.
I wished I had that that whole decade back, actually. But, I don't think he had a good time doing the show, because it was, first of all, he's such a brilliant guy, and that show you could be with 3 idiots.
Yeah, and it took the art out of what he does.
It wasn't for him, and he was right. And I remember at the time I wished he, liked it better, but I see now why. He was too good for it in a lot of ways.
But he was very written. When he did stand-up, he would never riff. He wouldn't play with the crowd. He didn't write on stage. He just wrote it and said it. And so on that show...
We see that in your documentary. Yeah. Because just like you did with the Shandling one, I love this. We see the notebooks.
Yeah.
You actually see it almost in his head first, but then on the page, sometimes the scribble out for the revised version that we then see and hear him actually do. I love that.
Yeah. And he talks about America, and you see the Post-it note, and it says, "It's a big club, and you're not in it."
Right. What did that mean?
Well, he was just talking about America, because he had this bit, and he said, they call it the American dream because you have to be sleeping to believe it.
You know what bit I loved seeing? I remember when he did it, but it certainly resonated with me so much now because of the pandemic and my feelings about how it should have been handled much more internally than externally.
Yeah. Internally meaning what?
Well, terrain theory, which even Louis Pasteur on his deathbed, and he was the father of germ theory, admitted to, is that, and it's not denying germs, of course, we're not insane people, it's the terrain that whatever the invading pathogen is trying to take root in, that's what is the deciding factor. If you're a swamp, mosquitoes will breed. Yeah. If your body is not a swamp, they have a hard time. That's not saying you can't die if you're not a swamp, but so when he said, when I was a kid, we swam in the East River and none of us got polio.
Yeah.
We swam in sewage. Yeah. and he goes on. Yeah. And it's just exactly. I just felt like, he also said at one point, it could have come out of my mouth these days, he said, I don't like orthodoxy from the left or the right. He was the only guy I can sort of use as a lodestar for that, who wasn't predictable.
Yeah.
With...
He's tough on everybody.
I didn't even always agree. I felt like his thing on environment was stupid.
There's plenty that don't work at all. I mean, I went through all of it. I mean, some of it is, like all of us, is great.
He's the planet will be fine.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, we're not worried about the planet. We're worried about us living on it. It was
He thought there was something arrogant about trying to clean up the planet for your own enjoyment. That's what basically...
For your own breath?
Yeah, I mean, he was just
for your own life?
Exactly. He thought there was something about that it was... self-centered to do it for yourself. I'm not exactly sure what that. Maybe I'm misquoting it.
So after you do one of these documentaries, are you sick of the guy?
Well, that one I was worried because I was very close with Gary Shandling. I had met George Carlin, but I didn't know him, and I just thought, can I capture him with my partner, Michael Bonfiglio, without having that experience? And his daughter, Kelly Carlin, was really instrumental in telling the story. And so I'm just so happy that her family thinks that it is correct, because it's also about his marriage. I mean, he had a very tumultuous marriage. They both had addiction issues, and then they worked it out, and it's a beautiful but rough story.
I love the drugs. I love the drugs. Yeah. Why continue? No, I love the drug stuff in there, because we learn a lot about coke, liquor, and pot. He's on a TV show way back, and he's saying, again, pioneers get all the arrows. I mean, fuck. He's saying, I don't know what year that was, but he's saying, I guess the kid, Kelly, probably was like 7 or 8 or something, and he's saying, well, we'd rather she smoke marijuana than do liquor. It's healthier, which is now a fairly commonplace and, of course, scientifically undeniable.
And he was saying they smoke pot in the house on a morning show in L.A.
Oh, that's
and
a morning
show. So shocked. It might be an afternoon show. I mean, their jaws are on the floor. He's like, we smoke pot, and we think it's fine, and we'll talk to our daughter about it.
You could tell the lady is like, how can I say this so this doesn't get on me? You don't really think marijuana would be acceptable to a child. You know, I mean, they are losing their shit. But when you see him in the round. At one point I kind of remember that show. I don't know what it is, but boy, do I see in that performance a guy who's coked up.
Oh, absolutely.
Sweaty. It's like the typical coke joke is the guy who can't shut up, and you hate that guy, but it's like, oh, but he has the right job for being that guy.
Well, he's also writing,
but he's also manic.
He's manic, and he's like doing coke for days at a time by himself, never with other people. It's never social, and he's writing and he's listening to music, and we have audio tapes of him like singing and screaming and he certainly paid a price for it with a lot of heart problems. And
I can't even imagine doing drugs like that. I'm certainly not against drugs, but only doing them wisely.
Well, one theory was that he had obsessive compulsive disorders and maybe attention issues, and something about the effect of cocaine for him, he thought was serving this obsession with writing and language, and maybe they were all working together in some way, and then it fully, like it does with drugs like that, gets away from him and really wrecks your life. But I was talking to his manager about it because I wanted to make sure we got it right. And he said to me, Judd, he said to me all the time, I love cocaine. But he did it for a very long time, and there was something lonely about it because it was about being on the road. And he had to cancel gigs. There's an appearance on the Mike Douglas show with his mother where his voice is gone.
Yes.
And he was canceling shows because of it.
Yeah. There's that story, it's very funny, that Paul Reiser tells that when he comes over to the apartment. And then they say when he's leaving, it's like, where are you going? He said, I got to go uptown to buy a camera. And Paul's father's like, let me take you downtown. I got the best place. So he goes with him and buys the camera, and they run into him like a year later, and they say, something about remembering that day, and he said, I was on my way uptown to buy coke, and I wound up having to go downtown and buy a camera. He was never going uptown to buy a camera. He was in town to score.
But how amazing it is that Paul Reiser's sister interviews him. They kept the tape. I have the audio in the documentary, and there's this amazing story of them driving him to a camera store, and against his will, he buys a camera. So he doesn't look like he's buying coke.
Show business is so serendipity. Do you know how Paul Reiser's really excellent career started? He was buying underwear in New York City in 1981 with the guy I was just talking about, who's in my book as the guy the Irish guy.
I think I know who it is.
Okay. I don't think you knew
figured it
him.
out.
I don't think you knew him. I loved him. He was a great guy. But anyway, Paul and he were going shopping, underwear shopping at Macy's. And then Mike had this, Mike, okay, giving it away, had this audition. And he said, Paul was just like hanging around with him. He didn't have anything. And he comes with and winds up with the part.
In Diner.
In Diner.
Yeah.
Barry Levinson.
Yeah, because he's just funny in the lobby.
How did it happen? Where did...
I think he was just like chatting with the people in the lobby and
Right.
they just said, hey, you want to come in?
But I mean, you can't...
It's
you
crazy.
can't.
And also...
You just can't.
I mean, that movie, for me, is a really big movie because I was very aware that he had improvised a lot of his part and that Barry Levinson and him collaborated on that character. And as a kid, I thought, wait a second, the actors can make stuff up in the movie. It was the first time I understood about improvisation and that type of collaboration.
Right.
And the way all those friends talk to each other in Diner was what I was partially copying with Knocked Up and all the friends and Seth because I was blown away by that movie.
Right. You've always had a troupe.
And that guy's son is the director and writer of Euphoria.
Exactly.
How weird is that?
No, I'm saying there's only 6 people in show business. But I'm not surprised about it. That's interesting that we got onto the Diner thing, though, because now that I'm thinking about it, yes, I do see that DNA. And your DNA is, well, first of all, it's not in the hands of Skip Gates. I mean, let's make sure that...
This guy's with me.
By the way, if I was going to trust my DNA with anyone, he might be the one guy.
He does
He's
deserve
a very honourable guy.
All respect to him.
Love that guy.
I'm going to send him a pint of my blood as an apology.
Skip, you can have my DNA, my blood, my jizz. You can have whatever you fucking want, my friend. I'm no snob about my bodily fluids, unlike some people. But, I mean, your DNA is like, you are one of those people, like, I would compare you a little, although much more successful, of course, to P.J. O'Rourke, who just passed.
Loved him.
P.J., when I read the National Lampoon, like in the early 70s, man, I mean, Mad Magazine was fine for being 10 years old. Yeah. But National Lampoon was wicked. And that was P.J. O'Rourke. Not at the very beginning, when it was good too. Yeah. But P.J.'s years were, I thought, kind of fucking amazing. And that DNA became Saturday Night Live. A lot of those writers, Michael O'Donoghue.
Yeah, George Maher.
And a lot of them. And the sensibility, and it kind of, and Saturday Night Live, spawned how many, most of the comedy movie stars we've had in the last 40 years. Will Ferrell, how many movies did you do with him?
Yeah. Well, P.J. O'Rourke was one of the first political writers, like, who wrote in a comedic way.
After Lampoon. Yeah. Lampoon, it was everything. But then, yes, he was for Rolling Stone. He was their correspondent, and he was all over the world. He was brilliant doing that, too. But, yeah, your thing has a lot of, girls.
Well, it was also like the thing from Barry Levinson was there are people who are funny. You could get to know them, pay attention to how they speak, how they're funny in real life, and find a way to put that in the movie. And that's the big thing that I took from it. Was, you meet people, whatever. It could be anyone that I've worked with and go, I'm writing with them or for them based on who they are. I'm not creating a character and going, act like this. Most of the time, I'm collaborating on creating a character.
I was just watching the movie The Man with One Red Shoe.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that one? Mm-hmm. Tom Hanks, 1985, probably his 3rd or 4th movie. It was like, I'd never seen it. So it's like, I see these things. I have TVs like in 4 places. I can watch in my bed. That's where I watch important stuff that I actually want to watch.
Yeah.
Then I got stuff. I have a little TV in the bathroom,
Yeah, for the tub.
Yes, you're right. What are you watching me with your fucking Google glasses?
Newsmax in the tub.
Not Newsmax. No, I was watching The Man with One Red Shoe. Like the whole tapes. I'll go through the movie channels. Like, I never saw that. I'm going to catch up with the man, or I'll watch this again because I liked it 20 years ago or something.
How did it hold up?
What?
How did it hold up?
Well, it didn't hold up because I'd never seen it. Oh, Hold Up in Time?
Well, yeah.
Not great. I didn't realize it was such... It's the oldest joke in the world. It's the guy who's mistaken for a spy. Mm-hmm. It's that movie. I for some reason thought it was a little more than that, but it's not. It's cute. It's of its era, but this is the 80s, and like there was no attempt, like when you knock a guy out, to look like you really could have knocked him out. It's just like, it's indicated, and it's like, okay, I see the guy is supposed to be out for the plot to move along. This guy has to be lying on the floor unconscious. Yeah. But what this man did to render him unconscious is just preposterously unrealistic.
Well, that's like Batman. It was unconscious from every punch.
Yeah, there was a lot of, somehow if you hit someone with a karate chop, like from the side on the neck, it was something about the angle of your hand would just automatically put them out. And then, of course, they would wake up and there would be no repercussions from being rendered unconscious for a period of time. In those scenes,
there would always be like 8 people on the ground. And at the end of the scene, as the guy who beat him up left, they would all slowly be waking up. But not enough to like go get him, but just enough to go, oh.
That's hysterical.
But that was a great era of Tom Hanks because, you know, he does Bachelor Party. Right. You know, and Bosom Buddies, and then, Big. And he just said, I'm going to be a great actor. And time after time, he just kept doing it till he completely broke through.
Oh, yeah.
In that way. And
no, he was great early. You know, it's like the early Beatles stuff.
Yeah.
It was different. It was somewhat simpler, but it's still good.
The Jackie Gleason movie, remember he made that movie?
Yes.
It was a great movie.
That was 85, I recall. Yeah. That was a guy who used to hang out at the Improv wrote that. I remember Bud Friedman being very excited about it. Yeah, it was a father-son one. I think that was the first one he did where it was, okay, now we're in the, revolver phase.
And Punchline.
Punchline, yes. Yes, where he played the comedian.
Do you remember when Barry Sobel was running around the club with Tom Hanks teaching him how to do stand-up?
I don't remember Barry Sobel so much, but I do remember Tom Hanks, and I remember thinking, wow, he's an actor. Actors usually are horrible approximating stand-up, but he could be a stand-up. Yeah. And he's proved that. I mean, he's done SNL and things.
Yeah.
I saw a sketch. They reran a sketch of him as Dean Martin. Did you see that sketch? He's playing Dean Martin and Carl Sagan. It's like 1990. Oh, it's, man, Dana Carvey comes in as Paul McCartney. Oh, some of that stuff. I mean, I watched the Ben Stiller. Some channel had it on about 5 years ago. Mm-hmm. Wow, that stuff was funny. And you were a kid.
I was a child. I was 24.
24.
When I was working there.
Do you remember the there was a commercial for a dandruff shampoo?
Yeah.
And dandruff, people kept, and him and Bob Odenkirk, they did a parody of that. The one where they did Woody Allen's Dracula.
It was Husbands and Wives.
Right.
With monsters. So it was Andy Dick
because Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula was out. So it was like Woody Allen. Yeah.
But the funny thing about that sketch, and this is why we were canceled, is Ben Stiller was doing an impression of Sidney Pollack as Frankenstein. And that's too many levels for most people.
Yeah, I can't even picture what that. Yeah, Sidney Pollack. That's not a. See, there's a director, a great director.
Great actor, too.
And a good actor who is not nearly as famous as you. Even at his heyday. Yeah. I'm just saying, that was an inside the town, Sidney Pollack. And he could still get a table at any fucking restaurant on any day on an hour's notice.
Well, he would call up and go, I directed The Firm.
Judd, do I have to give you show business lessons at this late date in your life?
Well, the one or two times when my kids have seen me try to use my name, and this is how you do it, and this is why you don't do it, is if you don't have an assistant at the time and you call a restaurant and you say, hi, this is Judd Apatow. Do you have room for two? Because you can't say, do you have room for two? Because they say no. You have to get the name out quick. Okay. And I did it, and I hung up, and my daughter, who was 15 at the time, turned to me and went, you are such a Hollywood dick.
That's why I love the This Is 40 movie. Yeah. Because it was so... I mean, I say it's interesting for me to be saying this so real from someone who's never lived in a home with children and a wife. But
Wait, there's no children here.
But somehow I knew it was real. You know, somehow it just really. That's an opus. That's a terrific movie. I've told you that before.
Oh, thanks.
I mean,
I'm trying to write this as 50
You
now.
went to a different level with that one.
Yeah, thank you.
Which was so appropriate because 40 is sort of when you know,
your first
you
breakdown.
build your life from 20 to 40, and then you live in it for, you know, hopefully you fucking knock wood, or please Jesus, or something that you get.
Yeah.
You know,
and Albert Brooks. I mean, to get that opportunity to work with Albert.
Yeah.
You know, because the night before he would shoot scenes, he would send me jokes. So I'd get emails with like his punch-up ideas, which is like, you know, your dream that you get those, and they were incredible.
Yeah. Well, he was always so funny. I mean, modern romance was for comics that sort of like shorthand movie that we would just do lines from, which I'm sure loads of people do with your movies. I mean, Superbad, and I've heard all those kind of, you know, stuff that comes back. But in the future, since you have this terrible esteem problem and this horrible person booking you reservations, in the future, just say, I'm Judd Apatow's father.
Well, you know what
Isn't
happened?
that the reason to have children? So they can help you when you're this washed-up loser?
This is how I know that my time has passed. I go on Twitter and I see...
Your time is not passed. What the fuck?
But I'm on Twitter and I see that my name is trending. My name has never trended on Twitter. And I look it up and the first person says, I just found out Judd Apatow's dad is Judd Apatow. And then the next tweet is, who the fuck is Judd Apatow? And then the next tweet is, he's a director. And then the guy responds, I don't know the name of every nerdy fucking director. And I was trending because people were debating that they didn't know who I was.
Again, I can only say your publicist. I'm sure she's a perfectly wonderful person. I feel like this is not appropriate. Do I have to like list all the things from Freaks and Geeks that you did, and then Cable Guy I love, and Anchorman? You just did Anchorman. People just say, hi, Anchorman guy. That's just, you don't have to leave. And then, you know,
I'm going to get your assistant to do my reservations.
Oh, you know, I even mentioned my favorite movie of all is Walk Hard. As far as just losing it, just laughing.
We like that one.
Oh.
Although when Walk Hard came out, and it did not open, as they say. It made $2.9 million opening weekend, which is not what they were hoping for. My daughter watched me take the call when I found out that it didn't make money. And she said the look on my face scarred her for the rest of her life. Just seeing Dad fall apart.
But I'm sure everyone's now seen it. Sometimes it takes a while and you see it on cable. And it's
whenever there's a new music biopic, everyone watches Walk Hard.
You know what? Jack Rollins was Woody Allen's manager.
Yes.
You know, the famous Rollins and Jaffe and many other esteemed clients. And, you know, when Woody was starting, he was telling his jokes at the Greenwich Village Bottom Line or one of those clubs down there, Cafe Wah. Yeah. The Hullabaloo Club, you know, whatever it was. It was mostly folk music and it's like early 60s. And somebody said to him, Jack, you know, he goes up there every night and he bombs. No one's laughing. And Jack said, they're wrong. Sometimes they're wrong.
Yeah.
You know,
sometimes
it just takes a while.
Yeah. Well, that is true. Things bubble up that you're surprised. I mean, like Harold and Maude is a movie that got killed when it came out.
Bubble.
Yeah. Well, my new movie. Are we promoting?
You know, I mean, I think... I don't think I have to prove to anybody that I am doing this thing without any sort of... yes, preparation or so. Like I barely know who's here.
Yeah.
I knew you were coming, of course, at some point. No, I knew it was today, but I've been excited about it ever since. But you have, they told me, let's get to the plug. You have a movie, and you're a big-time director, assistant. Bubble, is it called?
It's called The Bubble.
The Bubble.
Yes.
Okay, so this means the pandemic bubble?
Well, it's about a group of actors trying to make a flying dinosaur action movie during the pandemic in a lockdown in London.
So I read about this somewhere.
So they're all stuck in the hotel, having a nervous breakdown because they can't leave. They're only allowed to shoot the movie, and as it falls apart, the studio won't let them leave. And it's Keegan-Michael Key and Fred Armisen, Kate McKinnon, and Leslie Mann, and
that's another thing you do great is cast. You know, not that it's not your script and your touch, but like, you know, the people with Jim Carrey, it's hard to lose with Jim Carrey in that role. You know, I mean, Ben Stiller, you know, Will Ferrell. They once asked Sparky Anderson when he was manager of the Reds, like what his secret to managing was, and he said, "I write Pete Rose's name on the lineup card."
That's right. Yeah. Oh, that's so
Some
true.
of it,
especially with this one, because I thought, oh, this is almost like a Christopher Guest movie. Let's get 10 funny people. We'll shoot in a hotel, everyone having a nervous breakdown, and then on another stage, we'll shoot this dinosaur movie, green screen, and intercut them, and you know. That's the fun part for me is to.
So is it like a straight up comedy or is it?
It's a hard.
Okay.
It's like.
So it's just.
It's literally the goofiest, most bonkers movie I've made. It's not emotionally grounded.
Right.
It's more in Mel Brooks.
Right.
area, which is really fun because I thought that's what people want right now. They want to commiserate about how terrible this has been.
It's great that you can like. Usually, like Woody Allen. Mm-hmm. Okay. We don't hear a lot about him these days.
we just talked about husbands and wives.
We could get into yes, but I'm talking about what I think is his unfair banishment from life. But like he was the funny early comedies, right? And then he morphed into more serious. And remember, there was always that thing about, "Whoa, Woody, why don't you just make a funny movie?" Yeah. It's like, well, that's not what I do. So.
That was Twitter back then.
He never went.
Yeah, the guy in the street telling you to fuck off.
Exactly.
It's like that scene in King of Comedy when the woman's on the phone. She says, "Mr. Langford, will you talk to my husband?" She's like, he says, "No, you should only die of cancer."
Yes, right. But what are we talking about?
We're just talking about the early funny comedies.
Oh yes, people would be like, "Oh, Woody, why don't you go bananas?" And it'd just be funny. But once he transitioned to, I guess, with Annie Hall, like, he never went back and like, oh, you know what? 10 years later, I think I'm just going to make a Madcap one. Yeah. But he could have. Yeah. And it probably would have been good for him to do that.
Sure.
But, so I think it's good that you can, like, go back to just, like, your...
I mean, I don't even think I've ever gone this hard before.
Really?
And, and so that's like really fun. And also, I've never worked with special effects. I mean, everything I've ever done is just two people talking in a restaurant. So to actually have to design flying dinosaurs and work with the people from Industrial Light and Magic to make it look like one of those movies, I had never done any of that before. And then find a way to do dick jokes with dinosaurs.
You were good at everything you did. Still are.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks. I could talk to you all night, but, you know, I have a day job.
I know.
Ever since you got me that $500, I've been your biggest fan.
There you go. I think I got you one for $5,000 after that.
And I feel like, really?
Yeah.
That could have been.